Hi readers, today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite father figures in fantasy and science fiction. So I did a similar video to this back on Mother's Day. I'll link it above. So I thought it's only fair to do a similar one for Father's Day. And again, I had a hard time putting together this list. There are a lot of absentee and evil fathers when it comes to fantasy and science fiction, so I did expand it a bit to include father figures. Before I jump in, just a reminder, this list is 100% biased. It's just my opinion. These are not the best. They're just my personal favorites and only based on things that I've actually read. So, for example, let's jump in with my number 10 pick, who is going to be Cheifswan, Bella Swan's father from the Twilight series. Yes, I know, a little bit corny, but I'm a little bit corny, so it's okay. So Cheifswan, Bella's father, he's the police chief in this small town. And he's kind of like a stereotypical old school dad where he's very quiet. He doesn't talk a lot about his emotions or his feelings or any of that stuff. And you're not even really sure like how close he and Bella are because he's so quiet and reserved. But at the end of the day, I mean, he does love his daughter. He completely accepts the fact that she basically becomes no longer human by the end, and he's okay with that. You know, he helps her do all the things that she needs to do. I'm trying to be vague, so I'm not talking about spoilers, but I guess I have to talk about spoilers a little bit. I mean, Bella becomes a vampire. She has a weird half vampire-ish baby. I don't even know. I don't remember. But her father, Chief Swan, or Grandpa Swan, I guess, as he becomes, he accepts it. He still loves her, and at the end of the day, she's still his daughter, so that is why he's my number 10 pick. Moving on to number 9, I have Mr. Rupert Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you're not familiar with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it's basically about a young teenage girl who's imbued with super strength and like kind of, you know, fighting skills so that she can fight vampires. Now, in this world, so this is like based on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Joss Whedon show. So in the show, Buffy does not have a father. She's raised by a single mother, but then she is assigned a watcher. And a watcher is like, there's basically this council of elders that kind of help like train a new slayer and blah, 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 blah. But Giles becomes much more than just a watcher to Buffy. He really does become her father figure. He's there for all the important moments in her life. He's there when things go well. He's there when things go wrong. First loves and heartaches, you know, friendships broken, whatever it is, Giles is there through it all. Not only does he become a father figure to Buffy, but he kind of becomes a father figure to like her entire Scooby gang. So even though he's not technically her father, he is a father figure, and that is why he's number 9 on my list. Number 8 on my list of favorite fathers is going to be Duke Leto Atreides from Dune. Again, I did put Jessica, Paul's mother, on my mother's list, so I had to put Duke Leto on my father's list because I do think, even though we don't see a lot of Duke Leto and Paul together, Frank Herbert, I think, does a really great job in establishing that they have a very close relationship as a father and a son. And Duke Leto, besides just being a good father, he's just like an awesome guy in general. Like, he's one of the most popular kind of people in this universe because he's has a good heart, like he's fair, he's kind, he loves Jessica. Even though they're not technically married, there's like a whole thing there. I'm not going to go into it. And he loves his son. And he's just a good guy. Unfortunately, you know, things didn't turn out quite well for him. But he helped raise Paul to be a good person. And that's all you could ask for in a father figure. So that's why he was number 8. Speaking of raising children in the right way, that brings me to number 7, who's going to be Jonathankent. That's right, Superman's father. Now, there are a lot of versions of Superman out there, young Superman, old Superman. In some stories, Jonathankent is not alive, and some he dies, and some he is still alive. But whatever, at the end of the day, I think that it is very clear that Superman would not have turned out the way that he did if it wasn't for his human parents. So his mother, Martha, and then specifically his father, Jonathankent. So this comic book that I have in my hands, Red Sun, is an alternate version of Superman and basically tells the story of what would have happened if, instead of landing on a small farm out in Kansas, what would have happened if Superman's shuttle, when he was a baby, landed in Soviet Russia. Obviously, Superman would have turned out a little bit differently. So I think this really helps illustrate that Superman had a good father growing up, and that is why he turned out to be the hero that he did. Now, in case you're wondering, I don't have Uncle Ben on this list, Spider-Man's big father figure, because I don't know, I don't really have very strong feelings about Uncle Ben, so I'm sorry, honorable mention Uncle Ben, but I have strong feelings about Jonathankent, probably from watching Smallville and that sort of stuff. I don't have strong feelings about Uncle Ben, so sorry, Spider-Man fans. Moving on to number 6, and that's going to be Tamalthor from the Wheel of Time series, or specifically the Eye of the World, because Tam does not appear much in like the rest of the series, but he is in the beginning right here. And basically, this is another example of a father who is raising a son and kind of teaching them the right things. So the main character of the Wheel of Time is Rand al'Thor, and if you're not familiar with this series, it's really hard. It's a 14 books, high fantasy, lots of world building, very, very in depth. But basically, the main character is like a reincarnation of like a hero from ages past. So he has a lot of power, and he could very easily like lose his mind and go crazy and use his powers for evil. But he was raised by a simple, an ex-soldier who found him and took him in and raised him right, basically. So Tamalthor, even though he physically is not in the books a lot, his presence does continue throughout the series because, again, Rand would not be the hero that he is throughout the books if it was not for his father's influence. So that's why Tam is number 6. Moving on to number 5, and that's going to be Arthur Weasley from Harry Potter. Yes. Now, Mama Weasley was actually my number 1 pick, but Arthur, Papa Weasley, is only number 5 because I do think that he's a little bit corny at times. I guess for lack of a better word. So yeah, he's still a great father figure. Obviously, he has a lot of children. Just like Mama Weasley, he takes in Harry and kind of makes him part of the family. He works for the Ministry of Magic, and he keeps working for them even when Voldemort starts to take over, so he puts himself in danger to try and keep his family safe, and he's just a good guy. I mean, he doesn't have, like, one of those big, powerful moments like Mama Weasley does when she fights Bellatrix Lestrange, so that's why he's a little bit lower on the list, but I still think he's a really great dad, a really great role model, and that's why he's number 5 on my list. Now we're really getting up into my personal favorites, and number 4 is going to be a character named Jocelyn from the Kushiel's Dart series, and this is specifically Kushiel's Scion. Again, I mentioned this series in my mother's book because Phaedra and Jocelyn, they're a couple, raise a child who is not their own. And basically, they raise a child whose birth mother is like a villain, basically. So, a villain that Phaedra is kind of in love with. So, now you have Jocelyn, who's helping raise the child of an evil woman who his wife is kind of in love with, if that makes sense. So, the fact that Jocelyn can love, so the child's name is Imriel, he's a little boy. The fact that Jocelyn can love Imriel, knowing that Imriel's birth mother is an evil woman who is constantly trying to manipulate his lover, his wife, Phaedra, and who Phaedra is kind of a little bit in love with. I mean, I don't know what other kind of man would do that, would love Phaedra so much that he would raise Imriel as his own, help raise him, even knowing who he is and where he came from. And there's just a lot of history behind, like, their whole relationship, but I think that, again, just goes to show how amazing Jocelyn is, because, again, as a father figure and, like, legit father to Imriel, he loves Imriel. He does not hold it against him, you know, who he is, where he came from, does not hold it against him that his birth mother is kind of a evil, manipulative mastermind, like, none of that. And I don't know what more you could ask for from a father figure than that. So that's why Jocelyn is up here at number 4. My number 3 favorite father figure is going to be Mo from Inkheart. Dun, 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 dun. If you're not familiar with the Inkheart series, it's a middle grade fantasy. Oh, that glare is horrible. It's a middle grade fantasy where basically in this world, Mo has the ability to read characters out of books. So, for example, if I was reading about, let's say, Peter Pan, all of a sudden Peter Pan and Tinkerbell might all of a sudden appear, like, in my room because I'm reading about them. And sure, that sounds cool at first until you realize that lots of stories are filled with villains and stuff. So, long story short, Mo has a daughter, and he is trying to protect his daughter by not reading to her. Which, of course, you know, young girl, she wants to be read to by her father. She doesn't quite understand, you know, why he's so nervous about it. So not only has he read out some, like, horrible things, but his own wife actually disappeared. And they don't really know what happened to her. They find out later that not only did someone come out of the book, but she got sucked into the book. So I really love this whole adventure that Mo and his daughter, Maggie, go on. You don't see a lot of father-daughter, you know, adventure stories in fantasy, which I think is one of the reasons that makes this story so special. They have such a cute relationship. They are very, very close. And they do everything together. They're always there for each other. They have just a really wholesome, good relationship. So that is why Mo and Inkheart are number 3 on my list. Number 1 and number 2 were very hard to choose between. One of these is going to be more well-known, one of them not as well-known. At the end of the day, I just had to go with my personal favorite. So my number 2 pick was Ned Stark from Game of Thrones. Papa Stark, A Game of Thrones. Again, unfortunately, Ned Stark does not survive very long again, but I think that he is a great father. I mean, first of all, he is a great ruler of Winterfell. Like, his people love him and respect him because he's fair and kind. He has all these kids. He loves them all equally. He appreciates them all for the different skills that they have. And then, of course, the big one is Jon Snow. So, again, trying not to do spoilers, but basically Ned Stark goes off to war. He brings home Jon Snow, and even though Jon Snow wasn't, you know, one of his children, quote unquote, he still raises him as one of his own. He raises Jon right alongside all of his other kids. He treats him like he's one of his kids. Like, he does not treat Jon any differently than any of the other Stark children, which is what a good father/father figure should do. So I would have loved to see Ned Stark survive longer in A Game of Thrones, but at the end of the day, I love Ned Stark. And I love Sean Bean's portrayal of Ned Stark in the TV show, so that's why he is number 2 on my list. Who doesn't love Sean Bean? And finally, that's going to bring me to my number 1 favorite father figure, and that's going to be a character named Brimstone from Daughter of Smoke and Bone. Daughter of Smoke and Bone is probably one of my favorite, like, YA fantasy series. And without going into the whole plot, if you're not familiar with it, basically, we have a young girl named Karu who has blue hair. She lives in Prague, and she doesn't really know much about where she came from or who she is. All she knows is that she has a family of creatures that she kind of lives with, and those creatures are led by Brimstone. Brimstone is this big kind of demon, and he collects teeth. We don't really know why he collects teeth, but you kind of find out later on that he's able to turn these teeth into wishes. Long story short, but Brimstone, it turns out, basically saved Karu's life. So Karu is the main character, and they actually all come from like a different world, a different universe, if you want to say. And in that other world, she was a different person, and she was executed for falling in love with the wrong tribe, basically, with the wrong person, the wrong people. But in order to save her life, Brimstone captured her soul, like after she was executed, and brought it to Earth and reincarnated her into a human girl. Does that sound crazy? It is crazy. So hopefully that made sense to you. But basically, the point I'm trying to make is Brimstone saved her life. He saved her life by risking his own life, risking his own execution, capturing her soul, used his own magic at a high cost, you find out later, to reincarnate her into this, the person that she is now. It's a really crazy story, and you really have to read the book. I would recommend this to really get the full, like, understanding of it, because you have this character who on the outside seems really scary and terrifying. He's big, he's horned, it seems like he kind of does shady things, but really, he's really like a big teddy bear type guy, and I just love Brimstone. I think he's a great character. I mean, he's got a great name, first of all, Brimstone. Brimstone loves Karu. He loves all the creatures that he's kind of like in charge of, I guess, or lord over. He's just a great character. He's a great father figure to Karu. And again, he literally reincarnated her literally saved her life, literally reincarnated her. I don't think you can get much more cool than that. So that is why Brimstone is my #1 pick. So anyway, those are my top 10 favorite father figures in sci-fi fantasy. I know there was only really like one sci-fi, but that's okay. I wanted to include Leto in there. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any favorite father figures, please leave them in the comments section below. All right, everyone. Happy Father's Day.